Venice in the late 1500s was a republic at its absolute peak, a maritime superpower controlling Mediterranean trade, yet built entirely on water in defiance of every architectural law. This was also an era of unmatched artistic brilliance. Palladio was revolutionizing architecture, Tintoretto and Veronese were painting masterpieces, and Venice called itself La Serenissima, the most serene republic. Thanks to advanced AI software, we can now recreate these scenes with unprecedented accuracy. By analyzing 16th century paintings, engravings, and historical descriptions, we're able to show how Venice likely looked at its golden age. The architecture, the waterways, the people, and the atmosphere of the time, allowing us to step back nearly 450 years and experience the city as Venetians once did. This is an extraordinary view of Venice from the lagoon in the late 1500s, approaching the Bacino, the broad water basin that served as the city's front door. You're seeing the beating heart of Renaissance Venice, the richest republic in Europe and the gateway between East and West. Dominating the skyline is the magnificent Campanile of San Marco, standing 323 feet tall and a symbol of Venetian power. To the right stands the Doge's Palace, with its distinctive pink and white marble facade, completed in its current form by 1424, serving as the seat of government for over 1,000 years. This is the iconic view from the Piazzetta looking towards St. Mark's Basilica in the late 1500s. You're standing at what was considered the most important public space in the entire Republic. The Basilica itself, with its 5 Byzantine domes and gold mosaics, was begun in 1063, but constantly enriched with treasures from the east. Those bronze horses above the entrance? Looted from Constantinople in 1204 during the Fourth Crusade. The Basilica wasn't just a church, it was a vault of Venice's imperial ambitions made visible in stone and gold. The 2 columns were erected in 1172, brought from Constantinople as spoils of war. One bears the Lion of St. Mark, Venice's symbol. The other displays Saint Theodore, the city's first patron saint. This is Piazza San Marco during a ducal procession in the late 1500s, one of the most carefully choreographed displays of political power in Renaissance Europe. The Doge, elected for life but constrained by hundreds of laws and councils, processes through the square surrounded by officials in silk robes. Picture this, the crowd watching in absolute silence as prescribed by law, the rustle of silk and brocade, the measured footsteps echoing between marble facades. This is the Grand Canal, Venice's main artery, winding through the city in a reverse S shape that follows an ancient riverbed. In the late 1500s, this wasn't just a beautiful waterway, it was the most expensive real estate in the world. The palaces lining both banks represent the greatest architectural competition in Renaissance history. Every noble family competed to build the most impressive facade facing the water. That's because the Grand Canal was Venice's Broadway, Wall Street, and Fifth Avenue combined. To be seen on the water was to be counted among the city's elite. Notice the architectural variety. Byzantine rounded arches next to Gothic pointed windows next to Renaissance classical proportions. These aren't random styles. Each represents a different century of Venice's wealth, creating a timeline of power written in marble, limestone, and brick. The gondolas and cargo barges you see were the only traffic Venice knew. Every person, every grain of wheat, every piece of furniture traveled by water. This created a unique urban rhythm where the splash of oars replaced the clatter of hooves. This is Rialto in the late 1590s, where the new stone bridge is nearing completion, one of the most daring engineering projects of the Renaissance. For 800 years, Venice crossed the Grand Canal here using wooden bridges. In 1588, the Republic committed to stone. Antonio da Ponte's single bold arch, 92 feet wide, defied critics who said it would collapse. It did not. But the bridge is just the monument. The real power of Rialto was what happened beneath and around it. This was the Wall Street of the 1500s. Merchant bankers from Florence, German traders, Ottoman merchants, Spanish wool dealers, and Venetian nobles all converged here twice daily when the bell tolled from San Giacomo di Rialto, the oldest church in Venice. This is the Arsenal, Venice's greatest military and industrial complex, as seen from the Bacino in the late 1500s. You're looking at what was arguably the first assembly line factory in history. Behind those fortified walls and guarded gates, the Venetian state employed up to 16,000 workers. the Arsenalotti who could construct and launch a complete galley warship in a single day. This wasn't myth. In 1574, when King Henry III of France visited Venice, the Arsenal famously built a galley from scratch during the state banquet and launched it before dessert was served. Those two towers flanking the water entrance were added in the 1570s. Venice's power floated out of these gates. Galleys that protected trade convoys, patrol vessels that swept the Adriatic of pirates, and war fleets that confronted the Ottoman Empire. By the late 1500s, Venice was fighting for survival against Ottoman expansion in the Mediterranean. The arsenal was where the Republic transformed timber from Dalmatia, iron from Germany, and hemp from Russia into the military might that kept Venice independent for another 200 years. This is Murano in the late 1500s, an island of furnaces just north of Venice proper, producing the most coveted luxury goods in Europe. Since 1291, Venetian law required all glassmaking to move to Murano officially to prevent fires in the wooden city, but really to protect industrial secrets. Those secrets made fortunes. Murano glass was so valuable that a single goblet could cost as much as a year's wages. The techniques you're seeing were guarded by death penalty. Glassmakers who left Venice without permission faced assassination by state-hired killers. This wasn't paranoia, it was calculated industrial espionage prevention. European courts desperately wanted to break Venice's monopoly. What made Murano glass special? Cristallo, a perfectly clear, colorless glass invented here in the 1450s that mimicked rock crystal. Venetian glassmakers learned to use minerals from the Po River to create transparency that seemed magical. Notice the constant glow from the furnaces, visible even in daylight. These furnaces burned continuously for months because cooling and reheating would crack the crucibles. The heat was so intense that master glassmakers often worked stripped to the waist despite the danger of flying molten glass. Those impossibly thin goblets, those elaborate chandeliers, those mirror plates that transformed European fashion, they all came from these workshops. Kings collected Murano glass. The Medici displayed it as proof of refinement, and Venice counted every piece as another thread in its web of influence. This is Il Redentor, the Church of the Redeemer, completed in 1592 by Andrea Palladio as Venice's response to the devastating plague of 1575 to 1577 that killed nearly 50,000 people, a third of the city's population. The plague struck Venice at the height of its power. The very density and trade connections that made the city rich also made it catastrophically vulnerable. Merchant ships brought infected rats from Mediterranean ports. Crowded housing and summer heat turned neighborhoods into death traps. The Republic responded with brutal efficiency: quarantine islands, health passes, house burnings, and mass graves. But when the plague finally subsided, Venice needed more than medicine. It needed a statement that the city would endure. The Senate commissioned Palladio to build this church on the Giudecca as a votive offering to Christ the Redeemer. Palladio, then in his 60s, designed a facade that combined classical temple forms with Christian symbolism. Those soaring columns and triangular pediment declare both religious faith and architectural confidence. Every third Sunday of July, Venice still celebrates the Festa del Redentore. A temporary bridge of boats spans the Giudecca Canal, and Venetians walk across the water to the church, just as they did in 1577 when the plague lifted. The tradition has continued unbroken for over 440 years, making it one of Europe's oldest surviving civic rituals. History has left us thousands of remarkable paintings and engravings from cities across the globe, snapshots frozen in time, waiting to be brought back to life through AI reconstruction. So tell us in the comments, which city would you like to see revived next? Renaissance Florence? Ancient Rome? Medieval Paris? Your choice could be featured in our next video. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the past.